3 weeks after I signed over power of attorney to my daughter, my estate attorney called me and said, "Mr. Morrison, I need you to come to my office immediately. Someone has been forging your signature on legal documents. Don't tell your family. Come alone." Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. The phone rang on a Thursday morning. I was sitting in my study, the one room in the house that still felt like mine. Coffee getting cold on the desk, classical music playing softly from the old radio my wife had given me for our 40th anniversary. 2 years since she passed. 2 years of trying to find a reason to get up each morning. "Mr. Morrison." Richard Hastings' voice was tight, controlled. He'd been my attorney for 23 years. I'd never heard him sound like this. "I need to see you today. Can you come to my office at 2 o'clock? I glanced at my calendar. Empty, like most days now. Of course. "Is everything all right with the estate?" A pause. "Too long. I'd rather discuss this in person. And Walter, this is important. Come alone. Don't mention this call to anyone in your household." My hand tightened on the receiver. "Richard, you're scaring me." 2 o'clock. "I'll explain everything then." He hung up. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, staring at the framed photograph on my desk. Margaret and me on our last anniversary trip. Savannah, she'd loved the Spanish moss, the old architecture. 6 months later, she was gone. Pancreatic cancer. Fast and merciless. The house felt different after that call. Heavier somehow. From downstairs I heard my daughter's voice. Sharp, demanding. The way it had become over the past 18 months since she and her husband moved in. "Dad, did you move the checkbook again? I need to pay the landscapers." I closed my eyes. The landscapers. My landscapers. For my lawn. But somehow my daughter had taken over paying them. Taken over paying everything. "It's in the kitchen drawer," I called back. Same place it always is. Her footsteps on the stairs. Then she appeared in my doorway. Karen, 42 years old. My eldest. She'd been a sweet child once. Curious. Kind. Always bringing home injured birds and stray cats. "I don't know where you think it should go, but I've been looking for 10 minutes. She crossed her arms. "And Greg needs to talk to you about the car situation." The car situation. My car. The sedan I'd driven for 8 years. Somehow it had become Greg's primary vehicle while my son-in-law's own truck sat in my driveway, supposedly needing repairs he never seemed to get around to. "I'll come down in a minute." "Fine. But we need to discuss the household budget too. Expenses are going up." She left. "No please, no thank you. Just demands and departures." I turned back to the window. Charlotte spread out below my hillside home. I'd built this house 35 years ago, back when this neighborhood was nothing but trees and potential. Raised 2 children here. Buried my wife from here. 41 years as a civil engineer. Projects across 3 states. Bridges, highways, water treatment facilities. I'd built things that would outlast me by a century. Now I couldn't even find my own checkbook. The drive to Richard's office took 20 minutes. I didn't tell Karen where I was going. Just said I had an appointment. She barely looked up from her phone. Richard Hastings had his practice in a restored Victorian building near Uptown. Tall ceilings, original hardwood floors, the kind of place that whispered old money and older secrets. His paralegal showed me straight to his office. No waiting. That alone told me something was wrong. "Walter." Richard stood, shook my hand, gestured to a chair. "Can I get you water? Coffee? Just tell me what's happening." He sat behind his desk, pulled a manila folder from a drawer. Thick, official-looking. 3 weeks ago, you signed a general power of attorney giving your daughter Karen authority over your financial affairs. Do you remember that? Of course I remember. I'm 67, not senile. She said it would make things easier. Help with the bills, the house maintenance. I was tired of dealing with all of it after Margaret passed. Richard nodded slowly. "And do you also remember signing documents transferring 30% of your investment portfolio into a joint account with Karen and your son Tyler?" I stared at him. I never signed anything like that. Richard opened the folder, turned it so I could see. 3 pages. Legal language. My signature at the bottom of each one. But the signature wasn't mine. Close. Very close. Someone had practiced. But the W was wrong. I'd signed my name 100,000 times over 41 years. I knew my own handwriting like I knew my own face in the mirror. I didn't sign these. I know. Richard's voice was quiet. That's why I called you. The room tilted. I gripped the arms of the chair. Richard continued. The documents were filed with your brokerage 6 days ago. I only discovered them because I was reviewing your file for the annual estate update. The transfer was for approximately $340,000. $340,000. Half my retirement. Half of everything Margaret and I had saved over 40 years of careful living. There's more. Richard pulled out another sheet. Someone also attempted to modify your will. The original leaves your estate split equally between your 2 children. This version would have given Karen 60% and Tyler 40%, with Karen named as sole executor with full discretionary authority. Attempted. The probate attorney's office caught it. The notary signature looked irregular. They flagged it and contacted me yesterday. I couldn't speak. My own children, my daughter living in my house, my son calling every week from his fancy apartment in Raleigh, always needing money for some new investment opportunity. They're stealing from me. It wasn't a question. Richard nodded. I believe so. And Walter, there's one more thing. He pulled out a final document. Last month, Karen requested information about the process for having a family member declared mentally incapacitated, guardianship proceedings. She contacted a different attorney, not realizing that attorney is a friend of mine who mentioned it in passing. The words hung in the air. My daughter was trying to have me declared incompetent, to take control of everything. My money, my house, my life. I sat in Richard's office for 2 hours. He explained options, legal strategies, protection measures. I heard perhaps half of it. The rest disappeared into a fog of disbelief and slowly building rage. When I finally drove home, the sun was setting. My house glowed warm in the evening light. The house I'd built with my own hands and my engineer's mind. The house where I'd raised the children who were now trying to steal it from me. Karen met me at the door. Where have you been? You missed dinner. I made pot roast. She said it like an accusation, like I'd committed some offense by having my own life, my own schedule, had an appointment. You should tell me when you're going out. What if something happened? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. The calculating eyes behind the concerned expression. The way she positioned herself between me and the hallway, like a guard. Nothing happened. I pushed past her. I'm going to my study. Greg appeared from the living room, my recliner visible behind him. He'd claimed it the first week they moved in. Hey, Pops, we need to talk about that car. The sedan's making a noise. Might need to trade it in, get something more reliable. More reliable, he meant newer. More expensive, something I would pay for. We'll discuss it later. I climbed the stairs to my study, closed the door, locked it for the first time since my wife died. My phone showed 3 missed calls from my son Tyler. I didn't call back. Instead, I opened my laptop and began documenting everything. Every check Karen had written, every cash withdrawal from the joint household account she'd convinced me to open, every repair Greg had promised to make and never completed, every request for money from Tyler over the past 18 months. The numbers were staggering. $47,000 in household expenses that seemed to evaporate. $23,000 loaned to Tyler for investment opportunities that never materialized. $8,500 for Greg's truck repairs that the truck clearly never received. They'd been bleeding me dry, slowly, methodically, and I'd been too grief-stricken to notice. I worked until after midnight. When I finally went to bed, I could hear Karen and Greg talking in hushed voices downstairs. Planning, probably. Scheming. They thought I was a confused old man. Too sad about his wife to pay attention. Too lonely to question the children who'd generously moved in to help. They were about to learn otherwise. I called Richard the next morning from my truck, parked at the grocery store lot. Didn't trust the house anymore. I want to proceed with everything we discussed. The irrevocable trust? All of it. The trust, the new will, the forensic accountant. I want every penny traced. That's going to cost approximately $12,000, Walter. The forensic accounting alone, worth every cent. I paused. And Richard, I want to install security cameras. The house, my study, everywhere. Smart, I can recommend a company. Discreet installation. Do it. The next 2 weeks became a masterclass in patience. I smiled at Karen over breakfast, nodded along to Greg's complaints about the car, returned Tyler's calls, and listened to his pitch for a new real estate venture, certain to double my investment within 6 months. Meanwhile, the cameras recorded everything. Day 3. Karen in my study, going through my desk drawers. She found nothing. The important documents were now in Richard's safe, but I watched her search on my phone that evening. Day 5. Greg on the phone in the garage, talking to someone about getting me evaluated. His words, captured by the camera I'd hidden behind a paint can. Yeah, the old man's definitely slipping. Karen thinks another few months and we can get a doctor to sign off. Day 8. Tyler arrived for a weekend visit. First time in 4 months he'd actually come to Charlotte instead of just calling for money. I watched from my study window as Karen met him in the driveway. They talked for 20 minutes before coming inside. Animated gestures, nodding, agreeing on something. That night, they all had dinner together in the dining room. I claimed I wasn't feeling well, ate a sandwich alone in my study. But I listened through the camera feed. The trust is the problem. Tyler's voice. He sounds sharper than he does on the phone. If he moves everything into an irrevocable trust, we can't touch it. He won't. Karen, confident. He doesn't even understand what a trust is. And by the time the guardianship goes through, we'll have full authority anyway. How long? Greg, impatient as always. Dr. Brennan says 3 to 4 months. We need documented incidents. Confusion, memory loss, inability to manage daily activities. Karen laughed softly. That's why we've been handling all his finances. Paper trail showing he can't manage his own affairs. I sat in my study, phone in my hand, listening to my children plan my destruction. Something inside me that had been grieving for 2 years suddenly crystallized into something harder, colder. These weren't my children anymore. They were predators who'd seen vulnerability and smelled opportunity. The next morning, I made a decision. I'm going to visit Margaret's grave, I told Karen at breakfast. Might stop by the old office afterward, see some former colleagues. She barely looked up from her phone. Fine. Don't forget to take your medication. I didn't have any medication, but she'd started saying things like that lately, building a narrative, establishing a pattern. I drove straight to Richard's office. It's worse than we thought. The forensic accountant had arrived, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Okoye, who spoke in clipped, precise sentences. Over the past 18 months, approximately $185,000 has been diverted from your accounts through various methods. I stared at the spreadsheets she'd prepared. The household account your daughter manages shows regular withdrawals for expenses that don't match any actual bills. The investment transfers were unauthorized. And your son's LLC, the one you've been investing in, doesn't appear to have any legitimate business activity. It's a shell company? Effectively, yes. The money goes in. Small amounts go out to Tyler personally. The rest sits in an account he controls. Richard leaned forward. Walter, we have more than enough to pursue criminal charges. Forgery, fraud, elder financial abuse. These are felonies. I thought about my daughter's face, my son's voice on the phone, the grandchildren I'd never had, the family dinners that had become interrogations, the house that had become a prison. Not yet, I said slowly. First, I want my house back. The eviction notice was served on a Tuesday. I'd moved into a hotel the night before. Told Karen I was visiting an old friend in Asheville. She didn't question it. The process server arrived at 10 a.m. I watched from my truck, parked down the street, watched Karen answer the door, watched her face change as she read the documents, watched Greg appear behind her, grabbing the papers, his face reddening. My phone rang within minutes. What the hell is this? Karen's voice, shrill. An eviction notice? Dad, have you lost your mind? I kept my voice calm. You have 30 days to find other housing. The The notice is legal. We're your family. You can't throw us out like we're strangers. You're occupants of my property without a lease agreement. Arizona law, actually, North Carolina law is very clear. I've consulted an attorney. Silence. Then, quieter. You've been planning this. I've been paying attention. Something I should have done 18 months ago. Dad Greg is flipping out. He's talking about coming to find you. This is crazy. We gave up everything to move in and help you after Mom died. We sacrificed our lives. You sacrificed nothing. I cut her off. You saw an opportunity. A grieving old man with a nice house and a good retirement account. You moved in like parasites and started feeding. How dare you? I know about the forged signatures, Karen. I know about the investment transfers. I know about your conversations with Dr. Brennan about having me declared incompetent. I have it all documented. Video, audio, financial records, everything. Dead silence. 30 days, I said. If you're not out by then, the sheriff will remove you. And Karen, don't call Tyler. I'm dealing with him separately. I hung up. My phone exploded with calls and texts over the next hour. Karen, Greg, Tyler. Numbers I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail. At noon, I checked into a different hotel, paid cash. Gave a false name. Richard had suggested it. They might get desperate, he'd said. Desperate people do stupid things. He was right. Day 3. I returned to the house with a locksmith and a security guard Richard had arranged. Changed all the locks. Karen and Greg stood in the driveway, screaming. This is illegal. Greg stepped toward me. You can't just lock us out. The security guard, a large man named Marcus, stepped between us. Sir, I'm going to need you to step back. Who the hell are you? I'm Mr. Morrison's security consultant. The eviction notice is legal. You have access to your personal belongings. You do not have access to the main house. Karen was crying. Real tears or performance. I couldn't tell anymore. Daddy, please. This is insane. Whatever you think we did, we can explain. I looked at my daughter, the woman who'd tried to steal my life's work, who'd called doctors about having me declared mentally unfit, who'd laughed with her brother about how easy it was to manipulate the old man. 27 days, I said. I suggest you start packing. I walked inside my house, and closed the door. The next 3 weeks became a siege. Day 7. Karen showed up with a woman I didn't recognize. Professional clothes. Sympathetic expression. Dad, this is Dr. Brennan. She's a geriatric specialist. We thought it might help if you talked to someone. I remained in the doorway, not letting them in. Dr. Brennan, I said calmly, I'm aware that my daughter has been consulting you about guardianship proceedings. I'm also aware that such proceedings require documented evidence of mental incapacity. I've been evaluated by 3 independent physicians in the past 2 weeks. All 3 have certified me as fully competent and capable of managing my own affairs. Their reports are on file with my attorney. Dr. Brennan's expression flickered. Confusion, embarrassment. I'll also note, I continued, that participating in fraudulent guardianship proceedings is grounds for disciplinary action by the medical board. You might want to be more careful about which families you work with in the future. I closed the door. Through the window, I watched Karen arguing with the doctor shaking her head, walking quickly to her car. Karen standing alone in my driveway, face twisted with fury. Day 12. Tyler arrived from Raleigh. He hadn't called first, just showed up. Dad. He stood at the front door, hands spread. Can we please talk? This has gotten out of control. Whatever Karen and Greg did, that's on them. I had nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. I leaned against the door frame. So, you didn't create a shell company called Riverside Ventures LLC and funnel $67,000 of my money through it? That was a legitimate investment. There is no investment, Tyler. There's no business. There's just an account with your name on it and my money in it. His face changed, the mask slipping. You're being paranoid. This is exactly what Karen was talking about. You're not thinking clearly. Mom's death affected you more than you realize. Stop. He stopped. I want the money returned. Every cent. Or I'll pursue criminal charges for wire fraud and elder financial abuse. You wouldn't do that. I'm your son. I looked at him. Really looked. The expensive watch, the designer shoes, all purchased, I realized, with my money. You stopped being my son the day you started treating me like a bank account. You have until the end of the month to repay the $67,000. After that, I'm contacting the FBI. Wire fraud is a federal crime. The FBI doesn't care about family disputes. They care about wire fraud. And your shell company received wire transfers. Trust me, Tyler. I've had a forensic accountant examining your operation for 3 weeks. You're not as clever as you think. He left without another word. But I saw his hands shaking. Day 17. I came home from the hardware store to find my kitchen window smashed. Glass everywhere. A brick on the floor. The security cameras caught everything. Greg, face covered with a ski mask, throwing the brick, then running. I called the police. Showed them the footage. Greg was arrested that night. Criminal mischief, property damage. He spent 2 days in county jail before Karen posted bail. 14 days left. Day 23. Karen tried a new approach. She showed up with a preacher, a young man from a church I'd never attended. Mr. Morrison, the preacher said earnestly, your daughter is worried about the state of your soul. Family discord is painful for everyone. Perhaps we could pray together and seek reconciliation? I studied him. He seemed genuine enough. Probably didn't know the full story. Reverend, I appreciate your concern, but my daughter isn't seeking reconciliation. She's seeking access to my finances. 6 months ago, she forged my signature on legal documents to steal $340,000. Her husband threw a brick through my window last week. And right now, she's facing potential criminal charges for elder financial abuse. I'm not the one who needs prayer. The preacher looked at Karen. Her expression told him everything. He left without saying goodbye to her. Day 28. Moving trucks arrived. Finally, I watched from my study window as Karen and Greg loaded their belongings. Not much, really. They'd been living off my furniture, my kitchen, my life. Karen looked up once, saw me in the window. Her face was a mask of hatred. You'll regret this, she mouthed. Or maybe she said it aloud. I couldn't tell. I turned away. Day 30. The deadline. The house was quiet when I walked through it that evening. Empty bedrooms, clean kitchen, no Greg in my recliner, no Karen demanding money. Just me and the ghosts of happier times. Richard called at 8 p.m. They're out. Officially. And Tyler's attorney contacted me. He's agreed to repay the $67,000 in installments. He doesn't want the FBI involved. And Karen? The district attorney is reviewing the case. The forged documents, the fraud, the guardianship conspiracy. She's looking at serious charges, Walter. I sat in my chair, the one I hadn't been able to use for 18 months. What about the money she already took? We'll pursue civil recovery. Between the forensic accounting and your documentation, we have a strong case. You might not get everything back, but you'll get most of it. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Thank you, Richard, for everything. That's what I'm here for. After I hung up, I walked through my house, room by room, remembering. Margaret's garden, visible through the back window. Overgrown now, Karen had promised to maintain it. Another lie. The kitchen where we'd had family dinners for 30 years. The living room where I'd watched my children grow up. The bedroom where my wife had taken her last breath, surrounded by family who'd already started calculating her worth in dollars. I stopped at Margaret's portrait, taken on our 40th anniversary. She was laughing. She always laughed. I'm sorry, I said to her picture. I should have seen it sooner. But she'd been the perceptive one, the one who noticed things. She would have caught Karen's manipulation in the first month. I was just the engineer, good with bridges, not so good with people. The weeks after the eviction passed slowly, then quickly, the rhythm of life reasserting itself. I joined a woodworking class at the community center, something I'd always wanted to try but never had time for. The instructor, a retired carpenter named Bill, became something like a friend. You got that look, Bill said one afternoon, watching me sand a bookshelf. The one guys get when they've been through something. I kept sanding. Yeah, I have that look. Want to talk about it? Not really. Bill nodded. Fair enough. But if you change your mind, I've got beer in the truck. I almost smiled. I'll keep that in mind. I started volunteering at Habitat for Humanity. 41 years of engineering experience, and I was suddenly useful again, building houses for people who would appreciate them. Richard called with updates. The civil case against Karen was proceeding. Tyler had made his first repayment. The probate court had officially invalidated the forged documents. "You're protected," Richard said. "The trust is solid. The new will is airtight. Whatever happens next, they can't touch you." Whatever happens next. I thought about that phrase a lot. 3 months after the eviction, I got a letter, hand-delivered, no return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Karen's handwriting. "You destroyed our family. Mom would be ashamed of you. You'll die alone, and I won't come to the funeral." I read it twice. Then I walked to the fireplace, struck a match, and watched it burn. She was wrong about one thing. Margaret would have understood. Margaret would have seen what I'd finally seen, that love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's exploitation with a smile. The second thing Karen was wrong about came 3 weeks later. Walter. The voice on the phone was warm, familiar. "This is Patricia Okoye, the forensic accountant?" Of course. I straightened in my chair. "Is something wrong with the case?" No, everything's proceeding well. "I actually called about something else." She paused. "This is unprofessional, and I apologize, but I've been thinking about you, about your situation, and I wondered if you might want to get coffee sometime." I blinked. "I know it's forward," she continued, "but I've been through something similar myself. Not children, but a business partner who tried to take everything. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who understands." I looked out the window. Charlotte spread below me, the same view I'd had for 35 years, but different somehow, brighter. "Coffee sounds good," I said. "When were you thinking?" We met at a cafe near Uptown. Patricia was different outside the office. Warmer. She told me about her business partner, the betrayal, the 2 years of legal battles. I told her about Margaret, about Karen and Tyler, about the 18 months I'd spent as a prisoner in my own home. "The most terrifying sound for a manipulative person," Patricia said, stirring her coffee, "isn't shouting. It's the silence of someone who's finally stopped being fooled." I thought about Karen's face when the eviction notice arrived. Tyler's shaking hands, Greg in handcuffs. "They thought silence meant surrender," I said. "They didn't realize it meant I was gathering evidence." Patricia smiled. "And now?" "Now I build bookshelves. Volunteer. Have coffee with interesting forensic accountants." She laughed. It was a good sound. I'd forgotten how good laughter could be. The seasons changed. Summer became fall. Fall became winter. Karen's case went to trial. I didn't attend. Richard represented my interests. The jury found her guilty of elder financial abuse and fraud. Probation, community service, mandatory repayment, no prison time, but a felony on her record forever. Tyler made his monthly payments. We didn't speak. Greg disappeared somewhere. Florida, I heard. A new mark, probably. A new family to exploit. And I? I built a bookshelf for the community center, taught a weekend class on basic woodworking, had dinner with Patricia twice a week. One evening, we sat on my back porch, watching the sunset. Margaret's garden had been replanted. New flowers, new life. "Do you regret any of it?" Patricia asked. I thought about the question, really thought. I regret not seeing it sooner. I regret the years I spent being manipulated. I regret that Margaret wasn't here to protect me like she always did. But the eviction, the charges, cutting them off, that I don't regret. She nodded. Good. I looked at her profile in the fading light. This wasn't romance, not exactly. It was something more valuable. Understanding, mutual respect, the recognition of two people who'd walked through fire and come out the other side. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Dad, it's Tyler. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know I'm seeing a therapist, trying to understand why I did what I did. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know." I stared at the message for a long moment. "Everything okay?" Patricia asked. I showed her the text. She read it, handed the phone back. "What are you going to think?" "I don't know yet. That's okay. You don't have to know right now. I put the phone in my pocket, looked out at the garden, the sunset, the life I'd reclaimed. Karen would never apologize. I knew that. She'd go to her grave believing she was the victim. But, Tyler, maybe, someday. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but perhaps acknowledgement. Recognition that what happened was real and wrong. Or perhaps not. Perhaps some bridges, once burned, stay burned. And that was okay too. I stood up, offered Patricia my hand. Come on, I'll show you the new bookshelf I'm designing. Walnut and maple. It's going to be beautiful. She took my hand. The evening air was cool. The house was quiet. Mine. I thought about Margaret, about what she would say if she could see me now. She would say, "It took you long enough." She would say, "I'm proud of you." She would say, "Now, live." And I was. Finally, at 67 years old, I was finally living. Not surviving, not enduring, not waiting for the end. Living. Building bookshelves and having coffee and watching sunsets with someone who understood. Justice wasn't revenge. It was protection. It was boundaries. It was saying no when no was the only sane answer. I'd saved myself, and that was worth everything. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To listen to the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.